Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. I hope the week's gone well. It's like a roller coaster, isn't it, these days? Things can happen anywhere. The latest developments are in Africa, Zimbabwe, and in Angola. But we'll touch on those in a bit. Let me go back to Bitcoin, 7,850. My goodness, it's back all right, isn't it? In December, on the 30th of December, I said my optimal portfolio at this moment looks like long Bitcoin and long Bitcoin short gold. Both of those trades came off brilliantly well, but I took them off way too early. The volatility was stomach churning. Bitcoin hits fresh lifetime high as the cryptocurrency emerges as crisis currency in hotspots such as Zimbabwe, where it's trading at twice the international price, but that's more a function of the dislocation and disequilibrium in the Zimbabwean economy. I'd like to thank the British High Commissioner Nick Haley for a splendid evening with the Nairobi Orchestra and the inestimable Peter Evans on the piano, and some delicious tuck as well. Served some very good fish and chips, I must say. And here's a little 30-second snippet of Peter on the piano. We were sitting in the back a little bit, so you can see it was well attended, very interesting, very enjoyable. Thank you. Every photojournalistic story of mine has been a great journey. Paul Fusco, Magnum Photos, and it's kind of an iconic American photograph. Chinua Achebe, I believe in the complexity of the human story, so do I. And that there's no way you can tell that story in one way and say, this is it. Always there will be someone who can tell it differently, depending on where they are standing. The same person telling the story will tell it differently. I think of that masquerade in Igbo festivals, the dances in the public arena. The Igbo people say, if you want to see it well, you must not stand in one place. The masquerade is moving through this big arena, dancing. If you're rooted to a spot, you miss a lot of the grace. So you keep moving. This is the way I think the world story should be told, from many different perspectives. Again, until the lions have their own historians, the history of the hunt will always glorify the hunter. It is the storyteller who makes us what we are, who creates history. The storyteller creates the memory that the survivors must have. Otherwise, their surviving would have no meaning. Then I like this tweet from Mara Engai, why fit in when you were born to stand out, quoting Dr. Seuss. David Yarrow, a high-impact photograph of a magnificent and gravely endangered animal taken at Lower Wildlife, but my favourite David Yarrow of late remains this one of Tim in a forest. And it was with disappointment that we learned that the US is reversing the trophy import ban. It's a backward step for ethical conservation efforts. I couldn't agree more. Daphne Sheldon. Political reflections, a tweet from Moby Dick at Sea. The full terror of the voyage must be kept withdrawn into the obscure background. Robert Mugabe, I was in a Twitter conversation this morning, I said, is an intellectual, an old one, I admit, but he's still an intellectual. And that this negotiation between him and various interlocutors could take an eternity. His interlocutors will need their intellectual wit and some. Then Troll Colours responded, intellectual versus the bullet, the classic battle. And I responded by saying, I don't think the bullet is an option here. Mugabe is seen meeting with the Zimbabwean Defence Force commander and South African envoys at the State House this evening. That was yesterday. He is apparently resisting army pressure to quit, insisting he remains Zimbabwe's only legitimate ruler, an intelligence source said on Thursday, and is resisting mediation by a Catholic priest to allow the 93-year-old former guerrilla a graceful exit after a military coup. Zimbabwean intelligence reports seen by Reuters suggest that the former security chief Emerson Mnangagwa, who was ousted as vice president this month, has been mapping out a post-Mugabe vision with the military in opposition for more than a year. Changarai is quoted in the Daily Maverick, "If we're approached, we'll participate." So clearly the direction of travel is to a government of national unity, which allows Mnangagwa, who would not win an election outright, I can't help feeling, to remain in the cockpit and maybe manage the next couple of years better and to ZANU-PF's advantage. Zimbabwe's army mounted a coup against Robert Mugabe. This is The Economist. Few Zimbabweans relish the idea of the army replacing one blood-soaked tyrant with another. It's a horrible little country, lamented one leading opposition politician just hours before the coup. After 37 years of Mugabe's rule, the country's citizens deserve a chance to choose their leaders freely and fairly. They're not going to get it, not this time. A strongman nicknamed Crocodile is poised to replace Mugabe. This is the New York Times. The son of farmers, he was a hardened freedom fighter by 16, trained as a lawyer, and rose to become chief of his new country's fearsome intelligence service. Known as the Crocodile, he once explained the nickname by saying it strikes at the appropriate time. Indeed, crocodiles do just that. His ruthlessness is legion, says Peter Fabricius, a South African journalist. Fear about his association with some of the Mugabe-era's low points. Mnangagwa was accused of orchestrating a crackdown in the 1980s in which thousands of members of Ndebele, the ethnic group, were killed. There is a healthy dose of trepidation because they know that the man who might take over is not Mr. Democracy. While in charge of the Central Intelligence Organization in the mid-80s, Mnangagwa was accused of orchestrating a brutal campaign known as the Guku Rahundi, the early rain that washes away the chaff before the spring rain, which thousands political opponents and civilians from Joshua Nkomo's tribe were killed, a claim that he has denied. A crocodile patiently waits for his target, pretending to be a rock, he said. At times you think he doesn't react or doesn't have any solution to what is happening. He doesn't show irritation until the optimal moment, and then he strikes, and when he does, he doesn't miss his target. So, graffiti in Harare on Wednesday evening read, "We want Garwe," which means crocodile, a reference to Mnangagwa's nickname. Take a look at these charts from Bloomberg, of which there are several about the Zimbabwean economy. It's very interesting. The stock market, you will see, is absolutely lifted off as people went for a flight to quality. Same thing happened in Venezuela. Look at the size of the economy, which has fallen to the 20th biggest in sub-Saharan Africa from 10th when Mugabe came into power almost 4 years ago. Big selection, very interesting to take a look. And this goes back to what I was quoting Hunter S. Thompson, that was July last year. Countries like Zimbabwe feel like they are right at the edge. There is no honest way to explain it because the only people who really know where it is are the ones who have gone over. Let's move on now. So it's a fluid situation. I think medium term seriously bullish, difficult to navigate them now. You've got an overvalued stock market, you've got the currency, hyperinflation in front of you, but it's well worth looking at now because it will surely open up. Mugabe, I think, will exit, but under his terms, kind of, and it's going to be a pretty graceful one, nothing like Gaddafi's. Saudi authorities offer freedom deals to princes and businessmen, according to the AFT. Saudi authorities are negotiating settlements with princes and businessmen held over allegations of corruption, offering deals for the detainees to pay for their freedom, say people briefed on the discussions. In some cases, the government is seeking to appropriate as much as 70% of the suspects' wealth. Two of the people said in a bid to channel hundreds of billions of dollars into depleted state coffers. Some of the suspects, many of whom have been detained at the Ritz-Carlton in Riyadh since last week, are keen to secure their release by signing over cash and corporate assets, say people close to the negotiations. They are making settlements with most of those in the Ritz. Cough up the cash and you will go home. Over the weekend, I said we could witness a massive $1 trillion disgorge right here. I said the high-profile princely crew is jailed at the Riyadh Ritz-Carlton and the gates are now shut. The phone line is perpetually busy and you can't book a room until February the 1st. And I was predicting exactly what we're seeing. Russia, Turkey, Iran are meeting to discuss their Syria strategy. NK Badrkuma in Asia Times in a historic development. President Putin will be hosting his Turkish and Iranian counterparts, Recep Erdogan and Hassan Rouhani, at a trilateral summit on November the 22nd in Sochi. Meanwhile, on Tuesday, the Russian Defense Ministry openly alleged that the US military is impeding Russian air attacks on IS targets on the Syrian-Iraqi border and is indirectly enabling the terrorists to regroup. Quentin Somerville has a very interesting documentary on YouTube about this. The Pentagon called it a Russian lie. At any rate, the very next day, 6 Russian Tupolev long-range bombers flew from bases in Russia via Iranian and Iraqi airspace to vanquish those IS targets in a massive airstrike. Turkey and Iran estimate that Saudi Crown Prince Mohamed bin Salman's seemingly irrational behavior has a pattern. They suspect a script was worked out by Israel and the Trump administration with the objective of creating quagmires for Ankara and Iran. Earlier this week, Erdogan openly ridiculed the Crown Prince from an Organization of Islamic Cooperation platform and questioned whether he was qualified to differentiate moderate Islam from the extremist form. The simmering discord between the erstwhile caliph and the custodian of the holy places who succeeded him on the debris of the Ottoman Empire surged into view. Iran can see that the Saudis are encouraging Israel to attack Lebanon. In fact, Rouhani openly spoke about it on Wednesday. And I spoke about it on the weekend. I said Bibi Netanyahu, MBZ, Jared Kushner and a Trump carte blanche have all leveraged this existential paranoia in the mind of a 32-year-old crown prince to effect not a state capture, but a kingdom capture. The then 30-year-old Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Deputy Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, expected to ascend to the throne as early as this week, arrived on the scene and immediately launched an unwinnable war in the Yemen. President Assad, with his Russian, Iranian and Lebanese allies, resisted the regime changes in Syria. IS, which was a Sunni and Saudi blade, has been eviscerated. Iraq, which was once firmly in the Saudi orbit, is now aligned with Iran completely. Qatar is lost. See the Intercept article, which refers to a plan headlined "Control the Yield Curve, Decide the Future," which was essentially a plan to construct a big short on Qatar. And I said the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, and he said, should have spoken to me because I could have told him how to do it. Because we did it several times, many years ago, but the essence of it hasn't changed. Saudi Arabia and its allies, UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait, are caught in an ever-tightening Shia pincer. The paranoia in the palaces in Saudi Arabia is real and existential. And what is also clear is that Bibi Netanyahu, MBZ, Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, Jared Kushner, also looking to bail out his hotels, and a Trump carte blanche have all leveraged this existential paranoia to effect not a state capture, but a kingdom capture. Guptas were a precursor for this particular capture, I said. And then I said, the existential paranoia in the head of the 32-year-old wannabe king is evidenced in this comment about Iran in May this year. How can I communicate with them while they prepare for the arrival of al-Mahdi al-Montazar? So, I think we're in a dangerous, fluid situation in the Middle East, and that oil price is going to go higher. the moment it's coming off because a lot of people got wrong at the top, but it's headed higher again. Pakistan unveils a 1,700-year-old sleeping Buddha. Interesting dynamic that they chose to unveil it. Mo Ibrahim, it's the head of the fish that goes rough and reverse. So I'm trying to change things, because unless we change the way we run our countries, govern our people, allocate resources, and create a fairer system that is more transparent, we really cannot move forward. North Korea's missiles still lack the ability to survive a return through the atmosphere, Seoul says. Took me back to Pynchon. It is a curve each of them feels unmistakably. It is the parabola. They must have guessed, once or twice guessed, and refused to believe that everything always collectively had been moving toward that purified shape latent in the sky, that shape of no surprise, no second chance, no return. Dollar selling picked up overnight. Very curious bout of it, middle of the night. And this was based on the story in the Wall Street Journal that investigators into possible Russian interference in the 2016 US presidential election had subpoenaed President Trump's election campaign for documents. Special counsel Robert Mueller's team issued the subpoena last month for documents containing specified Russian keywords from more than a dozen officials, according to the report. So, we saw a bit of a sell-off in the early hours. The euro is now at 118.05. Dollar index was at 93.61. It slipped a little bit. Japanese yen 112.52. I'm a buyer of the yen here. Stop at 111.50. Swiss franc 0.9925. The pound 132.44. It's had a bit of a run higher. The Australian dollar is at 0.7565, getting walloped there, down 21 basis points. India rupee 64.775, they were upgraded by Moody. South Korean won 1097.55. Brazilian real 327.41. Egyptian pound 17.64. South African rand, that's strengthened as well, 14.1502. Doubt it can get below 14, however. Dollar index, I'll put up a 3-month chart. 93.50 remains a key area of support, as we've previously spoken about. The euro jumps above 118 as confidence returns from the eurozone expansion. That's from Holger. We're at 118.07. Walmart shares leave their 50-day moving average in the dust. Post-earnings rally in Walmart shares drove shares to the highest price ever relative to a key support level. And they've had some very strong earnings there. World's largest retailer gained momentum Thursday, surging as much as 11% to a record after reporting earnings that analysts said show it successfully fending off challenges from the likes of Amazon, Lidl, and Aldi. Commodity markets, gold, where are we? Just shy of 1283. We're going to end up the year at 1300. My piece over the weekend was really about the oil markets. It was headlined the capture of the 32-year-old wannabe king and the future price of crude oil. WTI crude oil last trading at $55.55. I don't think this is a big selling opportunity. I think anything can break at any time, and we're going to be much higher. Way to play it maybe by buying one-touch calls. Boom. You touch it and you cash out. The largest known fancy, intense pink diamond went unsold at Sotheby's in Geneva on Wednesday. The Raj pink at 37-carat stone set in a ring was discovered in 2015 in South Africa. Sotheby's had estimated its value as high as $30 million. Other lots were unsold, and the auction included a vivid blue diamond ring estimated as much as $18 million, and 2 yellow diamonds worth as much as $14 million. Oh, I'd like to buy one of those for the missus. I can imagine what her face would look like. Salvatore Mundi sold on Wednesday for $450.3 million, beating out works by de Kooning and Cézanne. I showed you the photo yesterday. Here's a list of the artworks that set records before Wednesday night's $450.3 million sale of Leonardo da Vinci's Salvatore Mundi, the savior of the world. Boy, we need a savior now. $300 million William de Kooning interchange, $250 million Paul Cézanne, the card players, $210 million Paul Gauguin, When Will You Marry, I'll put up that photograph because I was reading that book by Mario Vargas Llosa about Paul Gauguin. Brilliant book. Please find it, read it, we can talk about it. $200 million, Jackson Pollock, number 17A, and of course my favorite artist, Mark Rothko, $186 million, number 6, violet, green, and red. Take a look at that. ISDA declares Venezuela PDVSA in default on their debts, 15-0, that a failure to pay credit event had taken place. So that's that. The ratings firm, Moody's upgraded India to Baa2 from Baa3, and that's going to be seen as a positive move on Moody's side. Gusto is a social experiment that doubles as a restaurant. While Peru's food is much in vogue, neighboring Bolivia is yet to rise to the level of dining destination. Gusto is worth considering, both for the quality of the cooking and for the importance of its mission of educating disadvantaged young people and supporting the country's farmers. The ingredients are sourced from farms across Bolivia, and a school is attached to the restaurant. The dishes may be unfamiliar. You might find yourself eating raw llama with salty capers from Torrijos, washed down with Bolivian wine. Gusto was opened in 2013 by Klaus Meyer, co-founder of Noma, who installed Danish chef Camilla Seidler to run the kitchen. While it is a social experiment, it's also a place with interesting food, and looks an interesting place anyway. Have a look at the photo. Let's move on to Sub-Saharan Africa. Angolan economy is set to grow 1.1% this year. Sub-Saharan Africa's third largest economy enjoys a mild recovery. That's the IMF. Ricardo Veloso, the Brazilian economist who led the visit, said macroeconomic imbalances remain that need to be tackled by the new government. In a statement, he highlighted the widespread between the parallel and official market exchange rates and the backlog of foreign exchange purchase requests in commercial banks as points of continuing concern. But the major point here is that the president has made a serious move against the Dos Santos family. He's decapitated Isabel, and it seems as if the brother has resigned from the Sovereign Wealth Fund, which when I looked through their activities, they were bizarre, frankly. South Sudan leaders should be taken to the ICC over war atrocities, al-Bashir said Wednesday that leaders of South Sudan should be brought to trial before the ICC. Speaking before a student crowd in Khartoum on Monday, al-Bashir said there is nothing in the world like the ongoing death, destruction, displacement, and identity-based killing in South Sudan, and it is worth bringing the South's leaders before the ICC. The ICC issued 2 arrest warrants against al-Bashir in 2009 and 2010 for alleged war crimes. South African all shares up 17.56% year to date. 10-cent Napsters has helped this to a record, but we're coming off a bit as people are getting a bit nervous. Dollar Rand, we had a bit of a rebound there, all the way to 14.15. Let's see, might get as high as 14, but then we're headed back. Nigerian all share up 36.32% this year. Ghana Stock Exchange up an eye-popping 49.06% this year. I like this photograph from Truth Slinger last week. Today, take me back, he wrote. Presidential petition number 2, the Supreme Court is going to deliver its judgment next Monday. The interesting thing here is, based on the first judgment, you would very likely invalidate this one, but it's not going to happen because invalidation of that first election caused absolute chaos. The economy is on its knees, and really, the infraction was not sufficient in that first election to change the result, and I think that's the main point. Security heightened outside Jomo Kenyatta International Airport as NASA supporters gathered to welcome the opposition leader Raila Odinga's returning about now. The asymmetric opposition strategy was effective, but it's running out of road and is set to be guillotined on Monday. Robin Jogu tweeted, Raila returns. Kenya Airways reported first half earnings this morning. Let me tell you what happened. First half revenue was 54.518 billion, down 0.42%, not bad. Operating profit was up 52%, 1.443 billion. Loss before income tax 3.769 billion versus 4.726 billion. So a reduction of 20.25%. Loss per share, 2 shillings and 54 cents versus a loss of 3 shillings and 20 cents before. Cash and cash equivalents at the end of the period, 6.986 billion versus 12.425 billion last time. They're talking about their operating profit being up 52%, fuel costs lower by 21.9%, but climbing, fleet costs lower by 21.9%, but those are climbing now. Those are coming down, but fuel costs are climbing. I showed you that yesterday, up 30% jet fuel since June. Overheads decreased by 8.9%, loss after tax reduced by 20.5%. These were improved results. They've now better optimized the balance sheet, should afford some oxygen, but it's a long haul back to par. They've tweeted themselves their operating performance, have a look at it. Operating profit grew by 52%, overheads down by 8.9%, and a 20.5% decrease in loss after tax. Our cabin factor, this is good, is up by 5.4% to 76.9%. Passenger numbers up 3.3% to 2.3 million, and a 6.7% increase in intra-Africa traffic. They connect 12,000 guests daily with 140 landings and takeoffs to 53 destinations across the network. Michael Joseph, this is a long, hard road. It's probably going to be a 6 to 12 month journey, if not longer, before we see the results. Couldn't agree with him more. Nairobi All Share up 21.87% this year, lagging most of the African indices in Zimbabwe, of course, but not bad. Safaricom have launched their Masoko e-commerce platform. I see e-commerce a massive blue sky opportunity now beginning to be baked into the Safaricom share price, which is about 5.5% below a record high. South Africa's Public Investment Corporation has raised its stake in KenGen to 10%. But of course we knew that because we interviewed with Rebecca Miano, the managing director and CEO of KenGen, who told us that their interest was designed to hit 10%. KenGen is up 47.41% year to date. And I wrote a piece on the 21st of August about how KenGen was powering Kenya to the future. And in that I said a key driver of share price performance is the supply versus demand dynamic. And I was talking about the overhang of shares from the rights issue. And then I said, then KenGen announced that all these rights issue shares were taken up by PIC. And I said PIC single-handedly inverted the supply versus demand dynamic for the shares. They extinguished the surplus supply of shares and then started up a mopping up operation. Have a listen to my interview with the MD and CEO of KenGen, Rebecca Miano. The NSE 20 is up 17.48% this year. And then there's a hilarious take in the Daily Show, Trevor Noah. The link is the last link on Rich Wrap-Ups. He's talking about those two male lions who were getting cozy in the Mara and how our moral guardian Ezekiel Mutua wanted to put them into rehab. But just go and listen to it from 10 minutes and 50 seconds if you're interested. Wishing you a super weekend.